I pushed those people off cliffs. Slowly but surely, I separated him from most of them.
If you haven't listened to any Joe Rogan podcast, you must be living under the rocks. The Joe Rogan Experience is by far one of the biggest podcasts out there. Presently, it's #1 on Spotify, and that's because the show has a way of making you want more. Joe Rogan keeps it real on 100. However, the show goes the way you'd want it to go, but sometimes it doesn't. There are times the show host gives the show an unexpected turn, and there are even 10 more times Joe Rogan lost his temper with guests live. Plug in your headsets, seat back as we delve into unforgettable moments on Joe Rogan Live Show. For those who don't know about JRE, meaning Joe Rogan Experience, here is a little introduction for you. The Joe Rogan Experience, known as JRE for short, is a show hosted by Joe Rogan, a well-known comedian, actor, and television host. Joe began the podcast in 2009, and it has since grown to become a cultural phenomenon, attracting millions of listeners from around the globe. Saying JRE is one of the most popular podcasts in the world isn't controversial, as it is currently one of the top 3 most streamed podcasts in the world. The podcast is known for its conversational style, where Joe Rogan invites a wide range of guests to discuss a diverse range of topics. You shouldn't expect a particular type of people on the show, as they can range from scientists and entrepreneurs to comedians and celebrities. Joe Rogan's conversational style is relaxed, informal, and engaging, creating an environment where guests feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and opinions. When we're talking about this show, you can't really tell what to expect. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes emotional, sometimes controversial, and even crazy. Talking about how you can't know what to expect as a fan, this Mike Tyson's tiger story will make you marvel. Mike Tyson's appearance on the JRE made a lot of fans happy. That's because fans of JRE have been expecting to see Iron Mike on the show since 2009. So as soon as Mike Tyson was brought on the show, it became a showstopper before they could even utter a word. It was special for sports people and even fans of JRE. Fans just expected that a time with Iron Mike would be exceptional, and it more than delivered. Tyson became a heavyweight champion very early in life, and alongside his illustrious career in the art of pugilism, Tyson's terrifying reputation was solidified by his often wild antics in his personal life. See, Tyson has a lot of money during his boxing prime, and even now, he's wealthy. He had enough to live out almost all of his wildest desires, including owning several Bengal tigers. Yeah, you heard right. What happened to dogs, right? Well, I guess when you have enough money, you just want everything around you to show it. During his time on the podcast, Tyson had many classic moments, but one that is unforgettable is when he explains how he decided to buy the exotic animals while he was incarcerated. Can you guess what Tyson bought? Tigers. Protection. Companionship. Wrong. Wrong. He bought them for no other reason than he thought it would be cool to own them. The episode also offers a fascinating insight on what it would be like to go from having absolutely nothing to being able to own anything you could possibly desire in a short space of time, and the effect that can have on someone. It sure explains why Tyson had no special reason to own tigers. If you have the time, you can check out the podcast, and then you'd agree that Tyson is a talented storyteller. Joe just could not keep what he felt after he pulled up Tyson's picture with his tiger to himself. Don't you just agree? If that moment made you marvel at how unpredictable humans can be, Eddie Bravo's Bangkok Ready episode will definitely crack you up. For someone who isn't up on the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it might seem like Eddie Bravo's main gimmick is his outspoken advocacy for far-fetched conspiracy theories. If what comes to your mind right now is a JRE episode of Bravo talking about the Earth being flat, just chill. We're coming there. Right now we will talk about the Bangkok Ready episode. But before then, let's give Bravo his accolades. He has legitimate skills in submission grappling, and that's irrefutable. After becoming the first American ever to record a submission victory over a member of the vaunted Gracie family, Bravo has gone on to open a number of schools across the world and has been recognized as among the premier grappling instructors in the sport of MMA. Now, here's where his time on this particular episode became known as one of the funniest and most unforgettable moments in the history of JRE. There's been a story of one of Bravo's students circulating the internet, which Joe brought up. Bravo then decided to give the correct version of the story to us. He talked about training the student of his, named Gerald Strebent, who soon supplemented him with some Muay Thai. There comes the iconic moment when Joe asks if Bravo remembered what Gerald said. Unfortunately, Strebent ended up getting a little too caught up in his newfound striking skills, and convinced by his Thai boxing coach that he was Bangkok ready, ended up getting KO'd by perennial lightweight contender Josh Thompson in his only UFC appearance. Next is Sober October. It might seem a little unfair that the former kickboxer and fitness enthusiast Joe Rogan competes in a yearly exercise competition against 3 out-of-shape comedians. And that's because it is. But that's also where a lot of the hilarity stems from in the yearly JRE Sober October competitions. From the first iteration back in 2017, Rogan, Ari Shaffir, Bert Kreischer, and Tom Segura decided to take a vow of total abstinence for the month of October, while competing in a series of challenges relating to see who can complete the most exercise over the course of the 4-week period. The competition has continued in the years since, with the commitment to abstaining to all mind-altering substances still underpinning the month of podcasts for the 4 guys. But why is this even on the list? The 2019 Sober October recap episode earned a spot on this list for Tom Segura, retelling a story about Joey Diaz excreting in the shower.
He told me one time that he was about shitting in the shower.
That is genuinely one of the most childishly hilarious tales ever recounted on the podcast. This short story is equally hilarious and pretty disgusting. Who talks about stuff like that in public? I guess you can only get such on JRE. It seems this show makes people get pretty comfortable that they talk about anything, and anyhow. Apart from the fact that Joey Diaz is an open person who isn't shy to talk about his personal stuff, this episode of Joey Diaz, Blue Cheese with Wings, proves there is almost nothing Joey cannot discuss. This episode shows that the early days of the JRE were in many ways completely different from the show we see today. With Rogan's current status as a kind of Oprah Winfrey for guys yet to be established, the podcast was much more of a series of conversations between old friends than the platform of ideas it has since evolved into. Joey Diaz, the Cuban-American comedian extraordinaire, is one of the MVPs of the early days of the JRE. Diaz possesses an impressive array of stories that he can recount on command while remembering every minutiae of detail, possesses excellent comedic timing, and has an ability to rant about something seemingly trivial with a level of passion that seems entirely hyperbolic in relation to the subject matter. So when then podcast producer Brian Redban brings up the topic of ranch dressing on episode number 219 of the podcast in 2013, Diaz embarks on a now classic rant that only grows in momentum as he goes on. Diaz mentioned that if you're putting ranch in his options, then he doesn't even want to have anything to do with you. It's not like Diaz doesn't want ranch to exist, but he feels the way it is done is not just right. But above all, the condiment does not just sit right with him. Diaz culminates his frustrations with the condiment by uttering the iconic line. Next is an unforgettable moment of an incredibly talented actor. Jamie Foxx's incredible impressions. Jamie Foxx's appearance on the JRE back in 2017 may just be the greatest episode in the illustrious back catalog of conversations in Rogan's library. Clocking in at a bittersweet 56 minutes, Rogan and the award-winning actor and comedian Fox embark on a whistle-stop tour of subjects throughout one of the most hilarious episodes in all of podcasting. Not only does Fox come filled to the brim with epic stories featuring some of the biggest names in the worlds of movies and music, but he also demonstrates his incredible ability to impersonate almost anyone in the public sphere, leaving Joe in stitches on several occasions throughout the show. From Kanye West to Jay-Z to Floyd Mayweather to Robert Downey Jr. Fox displays an uncanny ability to replicate the accent and cadence of the celebrities that he impersonates. In the past, Fox is known for having this talent of perfectly impersonating others. There was a time he even mimicked ex-President Barack Obama in his presence. Even Obama could not hold his laughter. A particular highlight comes when Fox explains how he managed to convince Downey Jr. to play a Mexican in the unreleased movie All-Star Weekend. Fox absolutely nails the impression, and the segment has since gone on to be the highest viewed video on the JRE Clips YouTube channel with over 15 million views. Joe teaches Bryan Callen how to kick. Some of the most naturally funny moments on the JRE come during the Fight Companion episodes of the podcast, a less than serious take on MMA commentary where Joe and his friends live stream their reactions to UFC events. If you have ever watched any, the thought of it alone must be making you roll on the floor right now. Though the conversation often trails off into familiar territories such as conspiracies and psychedelics, Rogan has even commented that the episodes are among his personal favorites to do, and that when he retires from MMA commentating, he'd like to start doing more fight companions for the UFC's pay-per-view offerings. With Rogan's wealth of experience as an MMA commentator and analyst, Eddie Bravo's status as one of the world's premier submission grappling instructors, and Brendan Schaub being a former top 10 heavyweight contender in the UFC, Bryan Callen often finds himself at the receiving end of some pretty hilarious criticism for his, often actually pretty astute, fight analysis. In this episode, Callen starts demonstrating his sidekick in front of the guys as the former Taekwondo champion Rogan offers some constructive criticism. When Joe decides that Callen isn't taking his advice on board, he decides to take matters into his own hands and physically manipulates Callen in a hilarious manner in an attempt to correct his form. While this episode is all fun, the next one saw Rogans Tears. DDP brings Joe to tears. During Diamond Dallas Page's appearance in September 2018, Diamond Dallas Page, known as DDP, became just the second pro wrestler ever to appear on the Joe Rogan Experience. For those who are ready to ask questions, Jesse Ventura was the first pro wrestler, FYI. Though based on Joe Rogan's prior statements, it's not exactly surprising that it took such a long time for dealers of predetermined combat to be featured on the show. Joe has historically been pretty outspoken about his views on wrestling, often disparaging friend and lifelong WWE fan Tony Hinchcliffe for his love of the spectacle and spandex. Though he is still no great fan of the profession that DDP rose to prominence in, Joe Rogan immediately hits it off with the former WCW champion, with the pair sharing a love of yoga and fitness in general. It all began with Dallas sharing a number of stories of how his program has helped people improve their quality of life, with a particularly poignant story of a former soldier who managed to get to a healthy weight while regaining full function of his lower body by regularly performing yoga workouts under DDP's discretion. From the start of the problem, when doctors broke the sad news to the veteran, to the emotional part where the veteran mentioned that DDP was the only one that didn't turn him away. Together, Joe Rogan and DDP watch this video detailing the veteran's struggles together, to the point where the veteran improved greatly that he was standing on his head. The moment it got to the veteran's absolute transformation, Joe Rogan teared up. Apart from the fact that both Joe Rogan and DDP have an amazing chemistry from start to finish, this episode is an emotional one. If you get a chance, give this whole episode a watch. Maybe you'd understand why Rogan cried so much. Alex Jones threatens to choke out Eddie Bravo. Alex Jones's 2 appearances on the Joe Rogan Experience have had enough memorable moments to populate a list all their own. Alex made his debut in episode number 911 and returned to the JRE for number 1255 in an almost 5-hour episode that featured known conspiracy advocate Eddie Bravo. You know, he publicly states his belief of the existence of interdimensional child molesters at the highest levels of American politics as just one of a laundry list of conspiracy theories that was always going to provide some car crash entertainment. Throughout the episode, Jones puts the pulling up skills of young Jamie to the ultimate test with his never-ending stream of consciousness, ranting about a wide variety of subjects. One of the funniest moments of the podcast comes towards the end of the conversation between the increasingly inebriated trio, as Jones repeatedly asks the BJJ expert Bravo to come over to him and choke him unconscious, as Rogan tries in vain to stop things spilling out of control. Elon Musk smokes on the podcast. If there's anything we know Elon Musk to be, it is outspoken, As many other billionaires in the world are known to be reserved, Elon Musk is quite the vocal one who is always talking, and yes, makes him a great guest on the JRE show. However, this act on episode number 1169 in 2018 opens for a lot of controversies. Joe would later explain that he spent the early part of the podcast just trying to get Elon to relax so they could have a productive conversation. Once the pair settled down, though, the conversation really started flowing and led to an episode that did a great job living up to the monumental expectations placed upon it due to the profile of the guest. Then, at around 2 hours and 10 minutes into the episode, Rogan introduces what has since become one of the most iconic moments in the history of the podcast by lighting up a joint in front of the Tesla CEO. To the surprise of viewers at the time, Musk inquires about the legality of smoking cannabis and then takes a drag on the joint. Despite drinking alcohol throughout the podcast, by having one toke on a joint, the outspoken billionaire caused a widely negative reaction in the mainstream media and saw Tesla shares drop by 10%. Despite the wider repercussions, the image of Musk holding the blunt will go down in the annals of podcast history. Joe Rogan's theory on time travel. As we have discussed much about Joe Rogan's guests on the show, let's talk about Joe Rogan himself. Joe spoke about his belief on time travel, stating that if a machine can be built, time traveling is possible. He mentioned that a time travel machine is likened to a road, meaning when there is a road, there's the possibility of traveling. He further emphasized that time travel will help eradicate a lot of errors and will also help rectify all mistakes, as you can easily travel back in time to right your wrongs. With all that Joe said, not everybody agreed with him. It only opened doors of more controversy from many fans far and wide. Because of how much this was controversial, it made it to the list of one of the unforgettable moments on the show. Although Joe said what he said, he probably won't forget the effect of this episode of JRE on his show as well. Joe's heated argument with Milo Yiannopoulos. While we have seen different reactions from Joe Rogan, sometimes he goes into arguments with his guests. Keeping it real is one of the reasons JRE has remained on top of the charts. But as much as Joe wants to make sure everything is real and smooth, sometimes some theories and ideas just don't sit well with him. Such is the case of this episode number 702 on JRE, where Milo was talking about religion. Milo believed that culture and religion makes an individual better. He also mentioned that American culture is better than other cultures because it is based on Christian values. However, Joe argued that religion or religious beliefs had nothing to do with the way a person is behaved. In the real sense, do you think there is a relationship between religious belief and the way an individual acts? Let's know in the comment section. If you think Joe was firm in that episode, then you have to see this next one. Joe and Dave Portnoy. Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience, JRE, podcast and created an unforgettable moment. Joe Rogan and Portnoy got into a heated debate regarding the legitimacy of Tommy Fury as a boxer. While Rogan thought Fury was a proper boxer, Portnoy kept dismissing the Brit's ability until Rogan lost his cool. Portnoy said the following about Fury, which Joe Rogan agreed to some extent. Portnoy also argued that no one would know Tom as a fighter if his last name wasn't Fury. Dave Portnoy claimed that Jake Paul could kill Tommy Fury, to which Rogan had boxing footage of Fury playing up on the screen. Here's what Joe Rogan said while watching the footage. So, here's Tommy Fury. You're telling me this guy doesn't look like a boxer. You're out of your F*** G mind. I don't give a F** K about who he's fighting. Dude, look at this. He's fighting a professional boxer. The guy he's fighting looks good. You're crazy if you think Tommy Fury isn't a boxer. While pointing to an uppercut by Fury in the footage, Joe Rogan repeatedly asked Dave Portnoy to shut the F** K up and watch the footage in response to Portnoy rambling on and not watching what Rogan was showing him. It's time for the subscriber's pick. This image shows Joe Rogan and Andrew Schultz, suggesting they had a heated argument which made Joe tell Andrew to get out of the room. The two have had episodes on JRE and have created unforgettable moments on the show, including the time Joe learned about fans of OnlyFans being hustled. This revelation opened the eyes of many to the hidden secret of the platform. However, there is no known time out of time Joe Rogan lost his temper with guests on Live that involved Andrew Schultz. If you know of any heated moment between the two, feel free to share with us in the comment section. Joe and Eddie Bravo on the shape of the earth. Some fans believe that Joe Rogan is an angel put here to lead us to salvation. On April 18th, Joe Rogan spent nearly an hour verbally jousting with frequent guest Eddie Bravo about whether or not Earth is flat. Yes, an hour. At one point, Bravo, a third-degree black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and conspiracy theory connoisseur, proffered the theory that globalists, including NASA and the European Space Agency, aided by their godless acolytes in the mainstream media, had schemed together to perpetuate the idea that the Earth is round in order to enslave mankind. Rogan asked, why not indulge the full realm of possibilities and not cling to the conspiracy every single time? While Bravo delved away from the question to say NASA can get pictures, they've been doing CGI composites the whole time, Rogan painted to Bravo that his question had not been answered. Bravo then claimed that everyone is in on telling lies about what is going on about the Earth. Bravo, who repeatedly claimed to be crazy throughout the exchange to defuse Rogan's counter-arguments, suggested that people are more easily controlled if they believe they're standing on a ball as opposed to a flat surface. He said, "You're on a ball, you're nowhere. Don't try to go anywhere, just stay there and work." Rowan then pulled up a picture to back up his argument. Nick Yaris on being shot by a police. While we have seen funny moments and controversial ones, Nick Yaris's time on JRE is a crazy one. He told a crazy story of how he was shot while he was incarcerated. Nick said while he was being transported and the truck pulled up at a gas station, he wanted to pee and was escorted by one of the officers. After he was done relieving himself, the officer also used the toilet and left Nick to be alone. Nick thought he was trusted, and so he went back into the vehicle by himself. As soon as the other police officer saw him coming towards him, without the officers, he assumed that Nick had harmed his partner and shot at him as a way of preventing him from running or harming him. That was a near miss for Nick, and we can only be happy that he's alive to tell the tale. Which is your unforgettable moment of JRE? Let's know in the comments section. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. See you in the